This sporting great is almost the complete sportsman. He could have turned professional at football, athletics or rugby union, but opting for rugby league, his devastating pace made him the most lethal weapon in the unbeatable Wigan team of the 90s. The record try scorer in Great British history, he is Martin Offiah. Martin, is it true that although everyone pronounces your name Offiah, it is in fact something completely different?
Yeah, I suppose my name, the correct pronunciation of my name is Offiah, but I suppose when you see it written down, it does look like a fire, and that's what I've been known as.
And it wouldn't rhyme with chariots of fire.
Or great balls, or lots of other names I've had over the years.
Yeah, I had that story explained to me by a taxi driver, would you believe? And he said, "Oh no, no." He said, "That name, that's not his real name, that isn't." He said, and I said, "Well, how did you know that?" And he said, "We pronounce it wrong." And he said, because he explained it all in Emmerdale. And I thought, what's he talking about, Emmerdale?
My acting debut on Emmerdale a couple of years ago. It's kind of funny that, because Gary Conling was on it, who still currently plays for Wigan, and I think this was after we'd beaten Leeds or something in '95 at Wembley, and I think it was Wigan's 9th time at Wembley or something incredible. Won 9 Wembley victories on the trot, and we were walking into some service stations, and these two people, all they could say was those two guys that were Emmerdale. And we thought we've achieved so much, and that's all you get remembered for, is that you had a little dodgy stint in Emmerdale. But no, it was enjoyable. It was a laugh, and sometimes you can't dictate what you're remembered for. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, I think you're remembered for a lot of things, and one of the things, you're different. I mean, you're different. First of all, you're born in London of Nigerian descent. How come then you become famous for playing a game up north?
Well, my parents always believe that you're a product of your environment, and my parents sent me to a boarding school at the age of 11 in Ipswich, or just outside Ipswich, Wolverton Hall it was called, and they didn't have a football team. Something to my amazement when I arrived at the school, and I was told that they didn't have a football team. I couldn't actually believe it. I thought, it doesn't make sense. A kid growing up coming from Hackney, football's all that you knew. You supported Tottenham or you supported Arsenal, and to go to a school where you didn't play, they only played rugby, this game which was pretty foreign to me, but I took to it quite well, because I was a pretty sporty person and enjoyed playing a lot of sports.
Amazing. Now, okay, so there you were at this boarding school, and you discovered they introduced you to rugby union.
Rugby union, yeah.
First of all, you see, that's where the story gets even stranger,
I know, yeah. Well, I was obviously playing rugby union, left school there at 19, came back to London, joined Roslyn Park. I had a couple of seasons with Roslyn Park, and was fortunate enough to go out to Hong Kong and play in the Hong Kong Sevens, and then come back to London and play in the Middlesex Sevens. And if you're quite a speedy winger, in sevens and rugby union sevens, you get the opportunity to score, quite a few tries, and that brought me to the attention of some rugby league scouts. And a couple of days after the Middlesex Sevens, I got a telephone call from Mr. Doug Lawton, and how he got my number, to this day, still amazes me.
Carling on the far side, Metcalf's come in, this is Offiah, this is the first chance we've seen of him, and the speed of the man, getting past Gerald Caudle. The speedster from Roslyn Park extends the Barbarian lead.
I went to see him, he said how quick he was. Just thought we'd take a chance, and the chance came off. And he's proved to be, well, if not the greatest winger, certainly in the 3 or 4 greatest, without a doubt.
So, right. At that stage then, he basically offered you a job. He offered you a professional job with Widnes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you had all the criteria, all the background. There you were at boarding school, you played rugby union, you were from an academic family. Your father's a judge, your mother's a school teacher. What did they think of all this?
At first, they were a bit, perturbed at me playing rugby at all. And my parents, especially my mother, she was vehemently anti-rugby all the time, and we had many an argument. And
because you just worried about your safety.
She was also worried about my safety, but she thought, you're just messing about playing this silly game. You should be concentrating on your studies, and there's no future in it, which is pretty ironic, because the day that I took her to Buckingham Palace to get my MBE, I just looked at her face, and she had this big smile on her, and I still to this day remind her,
there's no future in this, Mum.
Yeah. She's like, shut up. But I still remind her, and I put it in my book, which was not to. She didn't find that too funny, but...
what would she have liked you to have been?
A doctor, or, a lawyer or something like that.
And did you feel that this is what you were going to have to do? I mean, you know, get a real job?
Well, when I was about 16 or 17, I was really starting to get good at rugby, and you know, you start sort of mapping out your career. I've always been a person, you know, who likes to look ahead and wonder what I'll be doing in a couple of years' time. And I thought to myself, well, you know, if I can, you know, get to university, get a decent degree, you know, then, or, you know, get quite good at rugby, then if you get a cap, you know, then in those days you're almost guaranteed of a, you know, a decent job if you're quite good at rugby. So that's the way I saw my sort of future. But, you know, it didn't turn out that way.
No. But then instead to be actually being paid to play rugby, that was
the thought of becoming a professional sportsman always, that kind of lifestyle always kind of really appealed to me. After leaving school, I did have a summer at Essex playing only in the second 11. But that didn't really, it was too much hard work, you know, bowling, being a fast bowler and bowling 7 days a week. It was giving the back a bit of jip, so you know, I thought I'd give rugby a go. But as I say, rugby in those days rugby union wasn't professional, so I always thought that I'd have to work and obviously play rugby at the same time.
What was the great talent in you even then, Martin, that obviously Widnes had spotted?
I think basically my ability to score tries. I mean, a lot of people have always said over the years, you know, you only score tries because you know you're really fast, and I think it's a bit too simplistic a view to put on it. I just use the gifts that I've got to enable me to get across the line. You know, I've always liked to score. Even when I was small playing football, you know, I've always wanted to be a goal scorer. My idols when I was young were people like Ian Rush, because he scored a lot of goals. You know, I didn't really have any sort of rugby heroes, so I wasn't really into rugby, you know, until I was about 16 or 17, and I started to take it seriously. Up until then, I used to make the school teams, but you know, I wouldn't say I was, you know, anything special.
But nevertheless, I mean, when you joined Widnes, I mean, you just look at the record. I mean, you took to it like a duck to water. I mean, you were absolutely prolific in your scoring. Did you actually find it easy?
I don't know if I find it easy. I suppose I used to score nearly all the time, so some people said it's easy, but you know, it did take a lot of work, you know. I don't think I scored until my third game, and I remember our coach Doug Lawton came up to me in the change room, and he gave me this little, which turned out to be the lucky pat, because he says, you know, he came up to me and said, you know, I can't really, you know, spend a lot of money on a try scoring winger, doesn't score any tries, because this is my third game and I hadn't scored a single try. I remember in my first game, I think I could have scored a hat-trick, but I think on one occasion I stepped in touch, another one I dropped the ball, and another one was a forward pass. In the second game, I remember against Bradford at Odsall, you know, I didn't get a look in all day, a typical sort of dour, muddy day at Odsall, which most of them turned out to be. So I think the third game we were playing in the Lancashire Cup against, I can't remember, it was Runcorn, I think it was. And he gave me this lucky pat, and then I went on then to score for 15 games in a row and set a record. So he kept giving me a few pats after that day.
Sure.
Finally. Oh, to Offiah! Now then! Oh, just look at this! Mercer has no chance! Here is the perfect athlete in motion! This is why he's been the top try scorer in the country for the past 4 seasons since he signed from Rosslyn Park. Mr. Showman himself, Martin Offiah, just pulling one out of the top bracket. Wonderful try.
And very fresh in your mind, obviously, at that stage, was the comparisons between the Code of Union and the Code of League. What were the big differences? I mean, obviously, you know, the rules are different and whatever, but basically as a player, I mean, was one easier than the other? Was one more enjoyable than the other?
I think I found Rugby League a lot more enjoyable. I think I likened it to playing Rugby Union sevens, you know, except that, you know, there's 13 aside instead of 7. You know, you get to touch the ball a lot more. I got to be myself, and I could be exuberant. I genuinely enjoyed myself, scored a lot of tries, and as I say, I had a thoroughly good time.
Yeah, and as you say, you were exuberant. You were able to enjoy your celebrations, and you became a character. Now, what about the northern people? I mean, I think it's fair to say northern people are traditionally very warm and welcoming. Did you fit in there?
Yeah, they talked to me quite well when I moved to Widnes. So I think there must have been only 2 or 3 black people in the whole town, so you know, I stuck out like a proverbial sore thumb. But it was all good stuff, and as I say, I came to the team, I think the year before they almost got relegated, and in my first season I think we won the Premiership and we won the league, so you know, I was the flavour of the month.
Yes, yeah. And then it was off to Wigan, and the transfer fee was £400,000, which was
440,000.
440, which was double, or maybe slightly more than double, the existing transfer record.
The deal was clinched with Big Jim finally between 4 and 4:30 yesterday. The fee is correctly reported at £440,000, and Martin has agreed a deal with the club which will take him up until 95.
Did that put, I mean, the fact that you remember it so well, did that put pressure on?
I always believe that you only get pressure when things are going badly. When things are going well, which fortunately they did, you know, when I was at Wigan, then you don't really feel the pressure. You know, it's only when things are going badly. I think a couple of years later, maybe in '93 or '4, I might have had a little lean spell, and then they still start, you know, opposition fans, you know, chant what a waste of money. I mean, they still chant what a waste of money in days when you've scored a hat-trick. So, you know.
In terms of fame at least, Martin Offiah is to rugby league what Paul Gascoigne is to football. Charismatic and blessed with exceptional skill and pace, he's rightly earned sport's most appropriate nickname, Chariots Offiah.
My first season in the league, you know, we got to Wembley, something I hadn't done at Widnes. You know, I won man of the match at the Lance Todd Trophy for the man of the match in the Challenge Cup final. You know, I scored 10 tries in the game, scored 5 tries in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup. So it was a bit like a fairy tale, a dream. You know, everything you touch turned to gold.
And there was another show to come in the second half. Leeds totally demoralised by now. Phil Clark's great run. And watch for this pass from Edwards to Offiah. That made him one short of equalling the Wigan record. Moments later, that record was equalled. Held by Green Vigo since 1976, Offiah now sensed that no one could stop him. By now, every time Wigan got the ball, they wanted Offiah to get it as well. Try number 8 came from Captain Dean Bell's pass. And how's this for cheek? Offiah at acting halfback, scoring his 9th. Mind you, the defence, well, it wasn't there, was it? And so to the 10th try, and I suppose Wigan taking the mickey out of Leeds. Just look at how all the players are actually looking to get the ball to Offiah. And just when Leeds thought this was one he wouldn't score, he did. Edwards, again the provider, 10 astonishing tries, confirmation that in World Rugby League he is simply the best in the business.
It was a big thing if I went to a ground and I didn't score that day, you know, so
yeah.
it was big news if I didn't score them more than if I scored.
So what, Martin, would you put down as the secret of your success?
I just think there's been a lot of players who have played the game before me and after me have been quicker than I've been, and they haven't necessarily scored as many tries. I think it's just my desire. Obviously, I know, you know, what I'm capable of doing, but I think it's just the fact that I enjoy scoring tries, like goal scorers in football. You know, they even like scoring hat tricks in practice, and I'm no different. I just enjoy it. You know, if I couldn't score tries, you know, I'd give up the game tomorrow without a doubt.
But what about your power? What about your speed? I mean, you are a lean, mean scoring machine, really. I mean, you're perfectly honed and tuned.
Oh, without doubt, you know, God has sort of, you know, been kind to me. But I believe that, you know, whatever, you know, talents you've given, you've got to make the most of that. And, you know, talent alone, you know, doesn't equal success.
At the start of the programme, I talked about various sports that you could have taken part in. I mean, is that to do with your appetite for success, or is that to do, I mean, for instance, your speed, for instance? I mean, do you ever think you could have been a sprinter? I mean, what, you certainly, I'm sure you could have fancied yourself as a soccer player.
Yeah, but with athletics, especially at school, as I say, when I was on the pitch, I was a natural show-off and I was quite exuberant, and it was always a big thing, you know, to try and get to the first 15, to play for the first 15, because that was on the Saturday afternoon, the whole school would come up and watch the game. Whereas with athletics, you know, it was one man and his dog there, and that wasn't really something that stimulated me. And
yeah.
So the fact that I don't know, just the thought of just running fast never really appealed to me. And I think another thing is that I seem to be able to run fast with a ball in my hand. You know, obviously people can run fast without a ball in their hands, but when they put a ball in their hands...
You needed the balance, you needed the direction.
You put a ball in the hands, for a lot of people it does slow them up, but
yes.
I think the difference between my speed with a ball in my hand and without a ball in my hand isn't that different. I think that's probably another factor which has probably been sort of a high, contributing factor to me scoring a lot of tries.
Offiah now, then will he take Cordle on the outside? Oh, just look at him go! Oh, this is a spectacular, surely! That is a try and a half from Martin Offiah!
You've referred a couple of times there to your exuberance, and it's very interesting. I mean, as a football fan as well, meaning a soccer fan, I'm interested in your view on goal-scoring celebrations. I mean, you're allowed to do your celebrations, whatever. Look at the situation with the FA in England and UEFA and indeed FIFA. They don't like it. They do not like players scoring, pulling their shirts up over their head, taking the applause of the crowd and whatever. What's your view on that?
I realise in some situations, it's quite possible to antagonise the crowd to a certain degree, but as far as I'm concerned, that's all part and parcel of sport. They give you a lot of stick. Opposition fans give players, a lot of stick. I used to go to Old Trafford quite a lot when I was up north, and I go to Highbury a bit now. I'm back in London, and I see the amount of stick that players have to take from so-called supporters of the game. And as a player, your only type of retaliation that you've got, we can't all go around doing Eric Cantona's and kicking the crowd. And the only way you can sort of fight back in any way is to perform well and to let them show that you're happy. They always say the best form of revenge is to live well. And if you live well on the pitch, that really winds up the opposition supporters. And that's just life. You can't just say players aren't allowed to be naturally exuberant. I believe that you shouldn't go around, putting two fingers up to the opposition fans and stuff like that, and and deliberately antagonise them, because that's wrong. But if you're just showing your own happiness, I don't see why anyone should try and curb that.
Rangers feed, Great Britain's ball, so it's the second one in the last few minutes. They've won against the feed. This is Offiah. Now we'll see his pace. Away he goes. He beats Gary Jack. He's going to score. Offiah will score. Wally Lewis cuts him off so he can't improve the angle, but we've finally seen him run in a straight line, and he scored a try.
You went back home in 1996 down to the London Broncos, as they're known as. And there was this great change, this great metamorphosis in rugby league. This northern working class game, satellite television gets involved, and now you have the London Broncos. What do you get? The Leeds Rhinos, the Wigan Warriors. What do you think of this Americanization of the game?
Well, basically, I see them basically trying to package the game to give it a wider appeal, to make it more appealing to the Sky television viewers, and to a large degree, I think it's worked. I think you can't just stay in the past. You have to move forward.
Let's talk about your international career. Do you remember your Great Britain debut?
Yeah, I remember my Great Britain debut. I think it was in Avignon, Perpignan, somewhere in France. Played against France, which is for a lot of players over the years, been sort of their graveyard. A lot of players have played one test in France and never played again. So I was quite adamant that that wouldn't happen to me, even though I did get dropped after. I couldn't understand that. So I scored, and I didn't think I played that badly, and I got dropped for the second game. There was a tour at the end of the year, and Mal Riley subsequently said that he wanted to look at as many players as possible. But there was a time when I was sat down in my house thinking to myself, God, my international career's over, and I've scored on my debut, so I was like racking my brains, but fortunately that wasn't the case.
What about highs for you, Martin? What about, when you look back, I mean, you're one of the few sporting greats actually we've talked to who's actually still out there playing, still out there doing it. What would you select as particular highlights so far?
In my career, I suppose two. I mean, I've had quite a lot of, sort of high points and sort of major. But for myself, I say on an individual now, I'd have to say that probably, scoring a length of the field try at Wembley in the Challenge Cup, in front of 80,000 screaming fans was probably, if I looked at one specific moment in my career and say that was probably, the most defining moment.
And Martin Offiah trying to make some space. Now then, Martin Offiah, he's got Alan Tate to beat on the outside, and Shoot is going to go the full length. That is one sensational try.
I actually remember dropping to my knees, sort of after, whizzing the length of the pitch and sort of holding my head in my hands, thinking to myself, this is it. I
don't get any better than this.
Don't see how it can get any better than this for a rugby league player.
Yeah. And then having said that, what about lows?
Yeah, I've had a few lows. Obviously the injuries that I've suffered, and they're always low points. I remember in 1990, I think we were touring New Zealand, and I dropped the ball over the line in a test match, and we ended up losing by 6 points. So that wasn't too much of a great memory. Losing in the Challenge Cup to Salford, I think it was back in '95 or '96, which brought Wigan's terrific run to an end. That was a pretty low point.
On the question of injuries, how do you cope when the mind is willing but the flesh is weak? How do you deal with that frustration?
You basically have to say to yourself, that in spite of everything, you're still going to succeed. It's just another obstacle to get over. People have a lot of obstacles in life, whatever their field, and I truly believe that you just have to say to yourself, I know I've got this limitation or whatever, but I still believe that I can achieve what I want to achieve. Over the years, I've lost the use of certain fingers, and certain joints don't work as well, and you come back after pulling hamstrings. I mean, like certain athletes, they pull a hamstring and that's their season gone. But you know that you've got about 4 or 5 weeks to get over it, and you've still got to be back doing the same things that you did before. People, spectators, and the public, they don't understand that this player may have had an injury, a major injury, and he's come back from that injury, but they just assume that you're going to be the same as you were before, and if you're not, then they don't really, want to hear about excuses. So you basically have to just steel yourself and say to yourself, this is the situation I'm in, and just make the best of it.
To McGowan, Marchant, on Offiah. Offiah's missed him. Betts has him. And Offiah is down again. It looks to be that shoulder again. And what a season Martin Offiah is having. He just cannot get back into it.
You're obviously a much older player than you were in 1987 when you turned professional. But what are the differences? I mean, maybe you were stronger then, maybe you're stronger now, maybe mentally know more things now. I don't know what. I
think I'm definitely a lot mentally tougher now than I was back then. To a large degree, I was going into the unknown, which was it was exciting, but it was quite scary at the same time. Obviously, I'm a lot stronger now. I've grown up, and I can break the odd tackle nowadays. Whereas early on, it was either a quick sprint to the line or nothing. So you learn things in the game. I've always been a great student of the game. I've been a great student of anything I go into. I talk to players who played rugby league from 7, and they don't know stuff about the game, and I find that hard to believe. I always believe that anything you go into, you become it's good to become a great student of that. And to know.
Do you study things? Do you look at things like, say, like American football, and draw comparisons between that and your own sport?
Oh, without a doubt. You look at lots of things. You look at the way that certain players train. If you're getting too big, as you get older, you start looking at boxing, look at the way they train, because they have to come down to certain weights to play well. So you can get into things and take them as deeply as you want to. And I think if you truly going to be successful at something for a long period of time, and there's been great players in many sports that have had unbelievable games or unbelievable seasons, but I truly believe to be great, you have to be great for a long period of time. And you only do that by paying a lot of attention to your art, your body, and everything, your whole complete package.
Martin, much is made of racism in soccer particularly, and the attempts to hopefully eradicate that, not only from the terraces, but also from the pitch itself. Is it something that you would experience with rugby league or not?
Not so much now, but in the early days, yeah, whole-scale chanting was something you expected when you went away. It was something that when I first went into rugby league, it did set me aback at first, playing rugby union, you might have got the odd sort of cry from the touchline or something, but I never experienced this wholesale sort of chanting, and it was a bit daunting at first, but I'd say it's something I didn't shrink from, and again, it steeled me to the task, and I always thought that if I could go out there and show them, then you know, then I'd be the one who's going away from the game happy and not them.
See, it's at times like that I sympathise with your mother, and her words come back to you now. If she's sitting in the stand watching you there, I mean, you can understand her concerns, can't you?
Yeah, I'd never encourage my mother to come and watch me play rugby league. I think the first time that she ever came was at Wigan in about 1993 or 94, and I'd been playing rugby league since 1987, and by that time it wasn't so bad. But early on, I would have never encouraged my parents to come, because I can handle it, but you know, I wouldn't have wanted her to experience that.
You can handle it on the pitch. Would you have experienced it in real life as well?
Oh yeah, you know, you can go out places and you get comments, but I've had the frame of mind that, you know, if that's been the case, I'd be fighting every day. You know, I've got more to lose than those people who are shouting at me. So unless anybody, you know, physically attacked me, then obviously I'd have to defend myself. But you know, if I heard a name shouted out or something, you know, I really just couldn't be bothered, to be honest.
Does rugby league have a programme the way soccer has a programme to try and reduce this situation?
Oh, without a doubt. And as I say, it's something that before wouldn't say it was acceptable, but you know, coaches and administrators probably just thought it was something that players
just part and parcel
of the game. Yeah.
You're still playing. You're concentrating on your game, as you say. Where do you go from here, Martin?
Well, if I score 3 more tries, I always like to, especially when you have injuries, I always like to, you know, focus on, you know, like getting back and scoring your first try, because that's always, you know, you can't achieve anything without, you know, your first step. And I think my first step is getting fit, getting back on the pitch, and you know, scoring a try. But if I score 3, then I think I become the highest try scoring Englishman of all time. So, you know, that's something that I don't really tend to look on records, you know, specifically, but sometimes if you got a goal, you know, set which is not too far away, then you know, it helps when you're doing the hard slog, you know, of the training and the rehab. You know, if you can see something which is in front of you but not too far away, then that it tends to spur you on. So once I've got over that hurdle, then obviously a bit of success with London Broncos wouldn't go amiss. And this is my last sort of season on my present contract, and if it goes well, I might sign for another 2, and you know, then look for my career beyond sport.
Yeah, and obviously, looking at your magnificent entrance in Emmerdale, what you're best known for, some 2 years ago, would acting feature there at all in the future?
No, it's just something. I mean, I did. You know, a couple of times. I also did a couple of stints in Hollyoaks as well. But after doing it, you know, the producer came up to me and said, "Oh, you know, you should consider doing this. It's something you're not too bad at." And I did used to do acting when I was at school. Something that I did enjoy doing. But as most people know, you know, once you get focused on a sporting career, you know, everything else is forsaken because of that. But when I finish playing, I don't see myself going into the coaching capacity, because I haven't got much hair, but what I have got, I don't want it to be grey. So, you know, I'll stay away from that sort of stuff, and possibly move into a media career. I've done sort of some work in radio and presenting with television and Sky. Yeah. So I don't know exactly where my career is going to go, but I'd see it heading off in that direction.
Well, good luck, whatever direction it does head off. And Martin Offiah, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much.
Much.
Cheers.